Beth, welcome. Welcome. This is so exciting to have you here for the session today.
No, I'm really excited about it. Thank you, Denise, for the opportunity.
You betcha. So can you share a little bit about your background with us, like, who you are, a little bit of personal, whatever you're comfortable sharing with, and a little overview of your business information, because we're going to take a deeper dive into that.
Sure, absolutely. So I live in Norwood, Mass, and I have 3 adult children who, for the most part, aren't here. So most of the time, I'm an empty nester. I'm here with my husband and my cat. And I'm originally from New York, from Long Island.
How I didn't pick that up at all.
Well, yeah, I worked really hard at you not being able to pick that up in my many years. I don't want to sound like I'm from here or from there. But sometimes people like to know I'm from New York. People have, stereotypical things about it. But and this is always a tough question for me, but I wanted to also share that I'm an only child. And so I spent a lot of time entertaining myself as a kid. I also learned how to become an excellent observer. And I think that really helps me now in what I do. And my company is That's a Spade, Copywriting Services. And I love to write content for women who have dynamic personalities, have come to terms with the fact that they have them, and they just don't want to write superficial general content anymore, but they struggle to walk that fine line between remaining professional and honoring who they are as a person. And so they need some support in all their content. And I do that in one-on-one sessions. I sell retainers. And then, of course, I have done for you services like website copy and blog series and things like that.
So to clarify, as far as your services, when you do copy for websites, do you also do social media copy, e-newsletter copy, or is it specifically specific digital spaces?
So I don't do a ton of social media copy. If somebody said to me, you just finished my website or you're writing a blog, do you think you could write a couple social media posts? I would, but I'm not a social media manager or implementer by means, but I have written emails and sales pages and all the things. And the more I know a client, I think the easier it is to write anything for them.
Yeah. And I mean, it's key too, when I talk to my clients in my work as a digital marketing strategist, our websites are our front door, right? So when people either directed to come check it out, or they just happen to stumble across our house, if you will, it really has to speak to who you are, what you offer, and who you're trying to connect with. So totally get that. And the value and benefit to having the message reflect who you are, right, in a way that's going to speak and appeal to people who are reading the words. So totally get that. So I would like to dig a little bit more deeply into, why is copywriting important for a small business to think about? And what do we as small business owners really need to understand about that value?
Okay, so I think if you are an entrepreneur, small business owner, and basically it's you and maybe 1 or 2 other people, whatever, you are a big fish in a big pond. Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of people doing what you're doing, right? It's I always like to use coaches as an example, because we know right now that's a hot field to be in. And there's so many different types of coaches, but people who don't understand what you do put you in the pool with all the coaches. So if you're not writing content and copy that really defines you specifically, your perspective, your philosophy, and how you developed it, they don't know how to tell you apart from anyone else. Right? So that's every field, right? And I find that people want to tell you where they went to school, they want to show their resume. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, but I think it's more important, like I said to you, I was an only child, so I know how to be an observer. I know how to kind of camouflage into the couch if people start yelling. I know, I know when the energy, when everybody's happy. Like, I just have become somebody who observes. And I observe my clients. So when I go to write, I know what their energy is. I know the language they would use, the facial expressions they make, and it becomes easy to communicate for them.
Oh, I totally get that. And as a business owner, as I mentioned, I'm a digital marketing strategist, and there's 12 billion of us. I haven't done the count, but there's a lot of us out there. And I am, as a small business owner and a provider of specific services around the engagement part, there's still, 10 million of us, doing that, and just trying to find how I articulate and differentiate, right? And how I'm authentically representing who I am and what I offer and who I connect with. So I totally appreciate that. So what is one or several things people might misunderstand about copywriting?
So there's two things I feel like I run into, and they're not necessarily things people say directly, but the first one is, first of all, I work mainly with women. So I don't know if that's everybody's demographic here. And I'm not saying this can't be a male issue as well. A lot of us don't feel like we're enough, right? We know we have this big hang up of I'm not enough, I don't do enough, I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. So I think there's guilt in needing help with writing because people think they should know how to write because they took English in third grade and all the way up, right? Or sometimes I run into people who are like, well, I have a degree in literature or I have a degree in journalism. And it's like, that's great. But A, if you're not writing all the time, and now you're trying to write for yourself, which can bring up a lot of vulnerability, you are not a persuasive sales and content writer. So can you learn to be? Sure, you can. But if you haven't put that time in, you're probably not the best person to write your stuff. Or maybe you have some ideas and you need somebody to really fine tune them or flesh them out into what really represents you.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, because most of us start out as solopreneurs, so we're doing all the things all the time. And that moment where you're like, okay, well, this is what I like to offer. I like to design logos. I don't do that. Serafina does. But design logos. Well, if that's my offer, I have all this other stuff. If I'm focusing on all that other stuff that's not directly related to that service that I provide, then it's taken away from me building my business. So it's important to recognize, and I'm learning that more so in my third year of business, the value of saying, you know what, I don't have to do all the things. I need to find experts like Beth to help me with that. So I'm wondering, how can business owners use copywriting to build relationships with their online community? I mean, you've talked a little bit about the value of being authentic, but I sort of like the other side of that table. How can you use the written word, this persuasive speaking or writing, I should say, to build relationships with potential clients?
Right.
So that's the secret sauce.
So the first thing I want to say is that, we all have things in our industry we assume other people know, but people sometimes are confused by content and copy. And copy is direct sales, right? It's a sales page. It's I have this thing. It's good for you. Do you want to buy it? And content can also be, well, let me say that, no, that's the wrong thing. Sales is also content. Everything's content, but copy is specifically sales. And so content is the place where you get to do your storytelling, right? Where you get to say, well, I learned these really sharp observation skills, and here's a story about that one time. And, you get to make things relatable to people, right? If you can show that you're vulnerable and that you're human, then you can make yourself relatable. And people who are hiring you and not a company of 30 people, they want to relate to you.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that once they know that, that's a good thing, the difference between content and copy. But I think when you're storytelling, it's almost like it's you and that person, like you and me right now, everybody else is shut off, and we're having a conversation face to face, a blinking competition, like with a cat. It's a nice, intimate kind of feeling, like they're the only person reading that thing at the time.
Right.
So I think that that's really important, especially because we're trying to build so many relationships digitally, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's more important than ever. Totally love that. Are there any trends that you're seeing in copywriting? I mean, does that happen in copywriting?
So I think it does. I love this question too, because I tend to be somebody who bucks a trend. I'm not somebody who jumps right on one. Like, I don't think you'll see me on TikTok or Reels. It's just not my thing. But there are things going on, right? Like right now, there's a controversial topic about AI and how can you write papers for your business? And I think yeah, you probably can if you want to write something factual, right? My husband's a teacher, and they're struggling because the kids are writing papers with AI and they're coming across as not, as being their papers, right? There's
Almost
no,
like plagiarism, sort of
yeah,
like in a way. Yeah.
it's not though, because you can't put it in and find it to be that it's copying anything. It looks like original content. I mean, it's a great idea for a big company, but again, if you're that one person, the chances that a machine is going to be able to really pin you to the page
Mhm.
compared to a writer or even yourself, I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe it's going to get better and better. I don't know.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Well, that is all the time we have to chit chat here. What is the best way for folks to connect with you, Beth?
So my email is Beth Knause at that'saspade.com. And I'm always happy to chat with anybody. I love to meet new people and hear new things that they're doing. So no, it's complimentary call. There's no pressure. And I am on the socials. I'm on LinkedIn as That's a Spade and Instagram. And that's a lie. Just told a lie. I'm on LinkedIn as Beth Knause, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook as That's a Spade.
Okay.
So
Great. Beth, thank you so much. This was super helpful, and I really appreciate your time and sharing your expertise with us.
awesome. Thank you, Denise.